Hi everyone, and welcome to our video lesson on writing and solving equations. For this assignment, you will definitely need two different color of highlighters. It can be any colors that you want. You're going to need your notebook, a pencil, and your calculator. So please, if you need time to get those supplies, pause the video and make sure you have your highlighters, your notebook, a pencil, and a calculator. Okay, so at the top of your paper, these notes are for 9/14/20, so make sure that you have the date written on there, and the topic is writing and solving equations. Okay, so let's first start by taking a look at some of the equations that we have been solving. So we've been solving equations that look something like this. They have multiple steps, and you'll see that we also have variables on both sides. So because we have variables on both sides, there are some similarities between the two sides of our problem. Okay, so here are some of those similarities. The multiplication part is the piece that is repeating. So as we go through our word problems, we're going to look for a portion of the word problem that is repeating. And then you also have this extra piece that is added on, these constants. Those constants are the part that happens once. Now, I know that this explanation isn't totally technical, but I really feel like you kind of understanding that multiplication means that something in your problem is repeating, and the constant means that something in your problem is only happening once is going to help you kind of understand what's going on in the word problems and be able to write that equation from the word problem. Now, even as we look on the other side of the equation, you do have a piece that is repeating and a portion of the equation that is only happening once. Okay, so now let's take a look at the steps for doing this. The first thing we're going to do is split the word problem into two situations. I want you to take your highlighter and make sure that we're highlighting those two different situations. Then we're going to identify the variable in our problem. And then for each situation, we're going to find the part that repeats and the part that only happens once. So again, just to kind of review this, we're going to split that word problem into two situations. This is why we need the highlighters. You're going to see me in the course of the video highlighting the two situations in two different colors. Then we're going to identify the variable, and then for each situation we want to find the part that repeats and the part that happens once. And when we can do that, then we'll set up an equation like the ones that we've already been solving. Okay, so here is our first problem. We have Jessica and Michael both have a lemonade stand, and they charge the same amount for a cup of lemonade. Jessica sold 5 cups of lemonade and received $2 in tips. Michael sold 4 cups of lemonade and received $5 in tips. If they made the same amount of money, how much do they charge, X, for the 1 cup of lemonade? All right, so this problem kind of has a lot going on, but it's pretty obvious that it's the two situations that are happening is the part that's happening with Jessica. So I'm going to highlight that in one color. And then we have the part that's happening with Michael. And I'm going to highlight that in a different color. Okay, so I have identified my two situations and I have highlighted them in different colors. So here's what I'm also going to do. I am going to put my equal sign. I'm going to split my equal sign just like we've been doing, and I'm going to label this side Jessica, and I'm going to label this other side Michael. So I've decided that I'm going to put all of Jessica's information on the left and all of Michael's information on the right. And remember, Jessica is in yellow and Michael is the information that is in red. Okay, now this is writing kind of what's happening on each side is just a strategy in order to help you keep all of this information organized. Okay, so let's look at what's happening with Jessica. she sold 5 cups of lemonade and received $2 in tips. So we need to find that part that's repeating and the part that's only happening once. So if she's selling 5 cups of lemonade, that means that she has made 5 separate purchases. 5 separate transactions. So that's my part that's repeating. She has sold 5 cups. We do not know how much each cup cost. Now remember, down at the bottom, how much do they charge is the variable in this problem. So because I know she sold 5 cups, but I don't know how much she charged for each one of those cups, I'm going to put that X next to that 5. But I do know that one time she received $2 in tips. So I'm going to, since tips are positive, that's extra money that's coming in, I'm going to add in $2. All right, now let's swap over to Michael's side of the equation. Michael sold 4 cups of lemonade and received $5 in tips. Now, the great thing about these problems is once I figure out, what the pieces are and how they connect together, for one side of the equation, the other side is going to mimic it. So I know he sold 4 cups of lemonade. I'm going to put my X next to it. And then he also received $5 in tips, so I'm going to add in 5. So now I have my equation. On the left, I have Jessica's information. On the right, I have Michael's. And now that I have my equation, I can solve it just like we've been solving in the previous video instructions and the previous activities. So I'm going to start by taking away 2 on both sides. That's going to leave me with 5x, because this crosses out, is equal to 4x plus 3. Then I'm going to take away 4 x's on both sides. That's going to leave me with 1x is equal to positive 3, or x is equal to positive 3. Now, this is really important. You need to understand that this is what's going on. It's actually answering the question. The question is, how much do they charge x for 1 cup of lemonade? As it turns out, they charge, since x is equal to 3, I can say that they charge $3 per cup. So a big part of what we're going to be doing in this lesson is just understanding how equations are actually used in the real world and making sure that we understand when we solve for an x, what that is telling us about a problem situation. All right, so here is example number 2 on your worksheet. I have Brittany, who walked 2 miles one afternoon, and then she decided to walk the same number of miles each day for the next 3 days. Tammy walked 4 miles one afternoon and then decided to walk the same number of miles each day for the next 2 days. How many miles, x, must they walk each day, excluding the first day, for them to walk the same total number of miles? All right, so that, again, these problems get very wordy and they have a lot of information in them. But it's pretty obvious that this problem is split between the information that's happening with Brittany, and then the other part is the information that is happening with Tammy. So notice how I'm highlighting those in 2 different colors. So we're going to start there. We're going to first make sure that we identify the 2 different situations that are happening. And then I also know that my variable is the number of miles that they walked on each day. So we'll come back to that at the end of this problem. Once we get it solved, we'll make sure that we make that connection to the variable. So like I said, a good strategy for you to use is to split the problem. Oh, excuse me. Tammy, I'm going to put in my equal sign. I'm going to split the equal sign. And I know that all of Brittany's information is the information that's in yellow. And all of Tammy's information, with my little typo, is the information that's in red. All right, so let's start with Brittany. I know that Brittany walked 2 miles one afternoon. So she started out with just those 2 miles, and then she walked the same number of miles. So notice how that's repeating. Like every day, each day, she's walking the same number of miles for the next 3 days. So I'm going to put 3. For 3 days, she's walking the same number of miles. And I'm going to put my X, connect my X to that part that's repeating. Now again, once we figure out one side of the equation, we can pretty easily figure out the other side. Tammy's walking 4 miles one afternoon, and then she walks the same number of miles for the next 2 days. Now that I have my equation set up, now it's time to solve. I am going to subtract 2 x's on both sides. I have 2 plus 1x is equal to 4. I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides, and my x is equal to positive 2. Now again, we're going to connect this back to the words in the problem. The question was, how many miles did they walk each day? And the answer, they walked, since x is 2, they walked 2 miles each day. All right, so we identified the 2 parts, we split them, we found the part that's repeating, the part that happens once, and on both sides, and then we solved. Okay, this is the last example that we're going to do together before you need to complete your assignment. Carol has a craft booth and at two different trade shows. At trade show A, she sold 4 pieces of jewelry, but had to pay a $5 fee to rent her booth. At trade show B, she sold 7 pieces of jewelry, but had to pay an $11 rental fee for her booth. How much did she charge for each piece of jewelry, X, in order to make the same profit at the 2 trade shows? Okay, so let's start out with what's happening. It looks like she went to 2 different trade shows. So I have trade show A, and the other part is trade show B. Okay, and then my variable is how much she's charging for each piece of jewelry. So I kind of got to keep that in mind as I'm evaluating these pieces of information. Okay, so I'm going to set in my equal sign. Then I'm going to label each side show A and then show B. And then if you remember when we looked at the problem, we did show A in yellow and the information for show B is in red. All right, so we have our equal sign split. Now we're going to look at each piece of information. So I know that the variable I'm looking for is how much she's charging. And at trade show A, she sold 4 pieces of jewelry, but she had to pay a $5 fee to rent her booth. And since that fee is money that she's losing, that means we're going to subtract $5. Now for show B, remember, once we can get one piece set up, show B is going to follow that same pattern. So I'm going to put 7x, and then she had to pay $11, so minus 11. Now that I have my equation set up, I'm ready to solve. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 11 to both sides of my equation. That gives me 4x plus 6 is equal to 7x. The next thing I'm going to do is subtract 4x on both sides. That gives me 6 is equal to 3x. Finally, I'm going to divide by 3, and x is equal to positive 2. All right, so remember, we're not done yet. I need to remember that in my problem, x is how much she charged for each piece of jewelry. So make sure that you're making that connection from the answer that you're getting for x to what's actually happening in the problem. So she charged $2 for each piece of jewelry. I spelled jewelry wrong. Oops. There we go. Okay, so let's just kind of remind ourselves what the steps that we're going to take for solving these problems. So just to review, you're going to split the word problem into two situations. You're going to identify that variable, and then for each situation, you're going to find the part that repeats and find the part that happens once. So one thing I did want to review with you is that not all word problems will have both pieces. For example, if our equation looks like this, we actually, on one side of our equation, we have the part that repeats, and we have the part that happens once. On the other side, we only have constants, so that sentence might only have a part that happens once. So the same thing with this type of equation. Here, on one side or on one part of the word problem, you have a part that repeats and a part that happens once. But on the other part of the word problem, you only have a piece that is repeating, so there aren't any constants being added. So there are other types of equations that you can write from word problems. They won't always have a part that repeats and a part that happens once, but we definitely need to be taking that into consideration as we are reading through these sentences. Okay, so from this point on, you're going to have an assignment that will get you started and kind of practicing on writing and solving equations from word problems. All right, thanks for watching.